Hi there. This is Paul Beckman, Paul Rainbow Song. I've been putting together a special note on a YouTube channel associated with Palu Rainbow Song at gmail.com. On this YouTube channel, I've created a playlist that has a special note on it on YouTube. Now, oftentimes when I create a song, I will say also by the new and first leader of humankind in the free world. After I've said by Paul Beckman, my mainstream name, Palu Rainbow Song, my new age name, and then I'll say that. Now, rather than repeating myself every time I create a song and say what that's all about, I decided to make a special note that says it all, so a person can be referred to that, and then they'll know more, because it speaks not only about that, but it also goes into other things too, such as an explanation of what humankind in the free world is all about. That, in fact, being a new country and government I've created. And yet, it doesn't really need to be referred to as a country and government, because it's basically the ultimate reality, and I'm just referring to it as a country and government for convenience sake, so we can start trying to mimic and follow it in our time, where it's much more than a country or government, where it's actually the divine spark in all that I'm terming as a government, and it is figuratively using the whole planet, the whole earth as a new country, yet actually it permeates the universe, entire universe, and all sentient beings and things as its own country, so to speak. Anyway, I happen to know enough about the infinite reality on which the apparent reality hangs that most people take for reality, such that I feel experienced enough to represent it to a degree. So, anyway, now here I'm speaking again, and this is because in reference to Humankind in the Free World, it was also created due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and how prior to that point we did not necessarily have a big country trying to kill people every day in another country. And I don't believe that should be going on, nor should we have to get used to it and see it as a norm. I refuse. Therefore, I started my fight immediately with Putin and Russia, and I'm going to continue it. Nothing against the Russian people, but who they're being led by and how. So, I stand up to bullies, and I will not be threatened by Putin, or allow the rest of the world to be either. So, earlier I was saying, when it seemed as if there was no one helping Ukraine, I was calling upon anyone, anywhere, who had jet planes and all that kind of stuff, to take out any parts of where Russia and Putin were firing at Ukraine. Well, now it seems that the rest... Oh wait, here's something. Let's tune into this.
Is in New Delhi for us, so tell us what's on the president's agenda today.
Well, Victor, it's certainly a packed agenda for President Biden here today in New Delhi. He's attending several multilateral sessions of the G20 alongside other world leaders, and we're already seeing the ways in which President Biden appears to be taking advantage of the absence of Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping in particular. And that is that at the initial opening session of this G20, President Biden was set to deliver a forceful condemnation of Russia's war in Ukraine and to talk about the ways in which this war is negatively impacting so many of the other countries that are around the table on issues like food security, global energy prices, and so much more. That was a case that President Biden would have made with President Putin and Xi at the table or not, but certainly it comes with more emphasis with those leaders' absence. And the second point is that President Biden is also outstretching an arm to developing countries, if you will, showing that the United States, or trying to make the case at least, that the United States is the more reliable partner for the future. And that is certainly an area where having Xi Jinping absent from this summit helps to drive home that point so much more strongly. And we saw that in one way in particular, where President Biden, alongside with the head of the World Bank, of which the President Biden is announcing a funding boost for the World Bank and several key reforms, they did a photo op alongside the presidents the leaders of India, South Africa, as well as Brazil, which are the other countries in that BRICS grouping of nations, which China has really sought to lead. And so that was a powerful message about the role of the United States in helping some of these countries continue to develop further. But there's no question that the divisions at this summit are still very much on display, whether China and Russia are at the table or not at the head of state level. Their representatives still are here, and these negotiations over the last several days have been ongoing over whether or not they can arrive at language for a joint statement or a joint communique about giving a position of all the G20 leaders. And one of the key sticking points has been the language over the war in Ukraine. Now, we are told by a source that diplomats hammering out this agreement have reached compromised language. Whether or not the world leaders actually sign off on that is another question. We expect to see that over the next 24 hours. Victor?
Jeremy Diamond for us there in New Delhi. Thank you, Jeremy. The full special grand jury report released Friday provides new insight into the 2020 election subversion investigation in Georgia.
So there you have it. There would be a joint communication denouncing Russia's takeover of Ukraine, or attempted. However, with Russia and China still having delegates there, or representatives, or deputies, it's going to become watered down and compromisal. But we have me to speak, so here I go. Humankind in the free world was partly created so that I could lend a voice to myself and be respected and be listened to, especially more if I represented a country and a government, just as many of the other world leaders. So I created one so I'd have a good business card, so to speak. Or I have something good to offer the world and a way to end the war in Ukraine, which is to, once again, stand up to Putin. Don't listen to his rhetoric and nuclear escalatory threats. Give it no pause. Give it no cause. Simply know that on the spiritual side of things, we are actually universal and void mind, the creative twin aspect of God. And as such, our real nature is that we are constant, we are eternal, in our true essence as that. We never die or never can. We are beginningless and endless. Identify as that. And then, if you're not identifying as the body alone, primarily, which does have a natural end and can cease, and instead you see yourself as the eternal that continues on, as universal void mind, God, Jah, then you need not be afraid of whatever rhetoric Putin is trying to scare the world with and bully everyone else into kowtowing to him. And in that light, in that vein, you can stand up to him. And so I'm recommending for the whole entire free democratic world to stand up to Putin this instant, as I've always been doing, and stop him. Join with Ukraine. Send boots on the ground, boots in the air, boots on the sea. Do whatever needs to be done and just kick him out. Now. Done. And then rebuild Russia as democratic. Give them that chance. And they don't have someone lording over them and using propaganda to change everything and lie to them and steal the show, hook or crook. Get Putin out of there and his cronies. That'd be a better world. So, there we go. Now the thing I wanted to add is that since I first created the part 3 video of a special note, the world has come together and helped Ukraine much more. It hasn't necessarily put boots on the ground, boots on the sea, and boots in the air so much as giving it weapons to fight with, but it's done that better. So let's continue to urge Ukraine to be given F-16 fighter jets and longer or longest range firing missiles and whatnot to defend themselves with, etc. And instead of being given the worst of all weapons to fight with and the extra ones no one really wants or needs, start giving them the best so that they can really defend themselves, and then go after getting Putin and Russia out of Ukraine completely, and go a step further and go into Russia to seek out and get Putin, and then put him and all his cronies in The Hague, arrest them, and have them wait their trials for war crimes against humanity. So there you go. The world has come together more in giving Ukraine what it has been asking for all along. Yet instead of letting the Ukrainians do all the fighting and dying, when will it be time for the rest of the world to see how important it is to stop Putin in his tracks? Do not let this linger on and fester. Stop him now. The way the world finally did with Adolf Hitler, you have to do the same thing with Putin. Okay, there we have it. Namaste, honor the divine in all.